Allahu Akbar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala khatamil anbiya. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. I was greatly inspired by Yasir's speech just now and have no intention at all to take up the topic from an academic point of view, nor I have the power of oration to talk about it. I'd like to begin my very brief introduction with you with a personal note. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us with not only this organization which I call a movement, ICNA, but that vision which ultimately was translated into a vibrant community. My topic is building pious society or community. But I believe in all humbleness, the program organizers have selected words which indicate their humbleness. I believe the society is already here. In 1963, when Dr. Sultan and a few others joined together to establish this movement, ICNA, no one knew that in 1970s, in 1980s, in 1990s, and ultimately in 2016, you will have thousands of people who are part of that movement. That means society is already here. Society is not to be built, but it is there. It's only to be refined and made more vibrant. When we talk about building any organization or society, we think immediately of what is the purpose. And as you heard by previous speakers, the purpose of Islamic society is only one, and that is ma'roof, good and virtue, to be realized in individual life, in family life, in society, and ultimately in the global human community. Islam, as you heard earlier, is the message for the whole of humanity. It's not for any ethnic group, any linguistic group, any territory. And as such, when we talk about establishment of Islamic society or community, it's not confined to Muslims. Islam from day one has been a community and a structure in which no single ethnic group could be identified. It has been a human community with variety, not diversity, but variety. And variety means you can have more than one forms, but with one and same essence and soul in them. That's why the Quran said that this religion is for the whole of humanity, and all mankind were born from one single parent, Sayyidina Adam and Hawa. My brothers and sisters, I would like you to share with me in how the Quran wants to build this society. The Quran wants to build this society essentially on a new concept of virtue or birr, which has been elaborated in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 177. I'll just go to its essence, the meaning. And it is said, it's not righteousness, turn your face towards east or west, but it is righteousness to believe in Allah and the last day and the angels and the book and the messengers, to spend of your substance out of love for Him on your kin, on orphan and on needy, on the wayfarer, on those who ask and to the ransom for slaves, to be steadfast in prayer and practice regular zakah, to fulfill the contracts which you have made, and to be firm and patient in pain or suffering and adversity, and throughout all periods of panic. Such are the people of truth. They are Allah fearing, Allah conscious. This one single ayah summarizes the whole philosophy of Islam and tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to create a society based on bir or virtue or kindness and love. But that's not confined to one single area of so-called worship, so-called devotions, so-called rituals, but it's a matter of how it integrates this whole obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our social action. Therefore, the ayah focuses on essentially how to liberate the slaves, not slaves simply in history, but slavish mentality, dominance of cultures, dominance of individualism, all those aspects which make us slave to those ideologies. Similarly, social work of helping the needy, going out and taking care of the poor, and so on and so forth. The ayah very clearly tells us that society needs our involvement. Not only involvement, but conscious effort on our part. Therefore, when ICNA was created, the idea was that we build a society for persons who are young, enthusiastic, who look for a future, and they create a new world, a world of love, compassion, sacrifice, helping each other, and ultimately offering all this message to humanity. It was based on this understanding that we ultimately came up a long way to see thousands of people here. The building blocks of society are first and foremost how we purify ourselves and come out of our I-ness. You have heard about it. I'll not go into details about it. All I can say is that modern culture and society is essentially a matter of egoism and short gains for the individual, immediacy and not ultimacy. Islamic concept of Tawheed is essentially to accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as ultimate and to translate His unity in our life by getting rid of all kind of contradictions, unifying ourselves in our own capacity as individuals, as families, as society, ultimately as humanity. Therefore, Tawheed becomes the first and foremost pillar of the society. And Tawheed is not a matter of monopoly of Muslims. Tawheed means getting rid of contradictions from the life of any human being. Any human being who wants to live a proper life should have unity in life and not contradictions. Secondly, a matter of confidence in our identity. We cannot build a society if we cannot keep our identity. Islamic identity is quite often confused with some kind of local cultures. That again is understood and studied in the rubrics of the so-called imperialistic paradigm of social sciences, where all human societies are analyzed in terms of their ethnicity, race, color, and language or religion. Islam provides a substitute approach, and that approach is that all human beings come from one single parent. Therefore, your classifications of blacks and whites and yellow, of linguistic and color differences are immaterial. We have to change that paradigm. When we change that paradigm, we have new knowledge created. And that knowledge creates Islamic identity. It's not confined in single dress, single color, single language, but in those values which Islam has provided, particularly the value of Tawheed. Thirdly, it's a matter of creating in our personality a balanced attitude the Quran calls adl. Adl is not a matter of justice, but more than that. Adl means when you have in your speech, in your walk, in your spending, in your saving, in your relation with people, a moderate and balanced approach. Therefore, the Quran says in several places, who has made you think that you should not acquire beauty? Acquire beauty. Allah has given you all resources for that, but do not exaggerate, do not exceed. Eat and drink, but do not go in excess. The Quran reminds again and again in various contexts how we build the society by way of a moderate approach, an approach in which we are giving due to everyone around us. Thirdly, it's a matter of taking initiative on those issues which are social and human issues. You just heard our young scholar telling us that Islam was a movement against all those oppressions which were there in society. I believe such oppressions have increased today, not decreased. And as such, it's our obligation to stand up for truth, for human beings. May those be Muslims or non-Muslims, black or white, poor or rich, but whenever there is oppression, we unite against it. And without that, we cannot fulfill our obligation. Lastly, we build society based on tazkiyah. And tazkiyah is not just a matter of emptying out ourselves, it's a matter of filling ourselves with virtue and good. Tazkiyah is a matter of increase, not decrease. Tazkiyah is a matter of increasing in virtues. The Quran says, indeed, innal hasanat yudhibna sayyat. When you increase in virtue, when we increase in morality, when we increase in social consciousness, then we are automatically doing our tazkiyah. Zakah is not a matter of giving tax. It's a matter of increasing your wealth, multiplying it 70 times or more. Therefore, an approach of tazkiyah which is not conventional needs to be understood. Our tazkiyah should not be a matter of just cleansing ourselves of wrongs, but excelling and increasing ourselves in those strengths which are the base of society. Society has to be constructed on its strengths, not that we come up and we feel we are depressed. I don't agree with the idea that Muslim Ummah is divided and weak. I believe Muslim Ummah is facing enormous challenges, and only those face challenges who make others uncomfortable. If you are nothing, nobody worries about you. But if you are something, people feel a threat unnecessarily. Muslim Ummah brings a community of its own, which is vibrant, global, which has no color bar, no language bar, no territorial bar, and as such a unique ummah. And that exists today in this hall, that have existed from the day one in ICNA, which was not created for an ethnic group, but for all those who agreed on one single ideology, that Islam is the only way, Islam is the only peaceful way of living. It can only bring to us success in this world life hereafter. And therefore, I believe that the society we think about constructing, a pious society, is already here. All we need to do is pass on this tradition to coming generation. I belong to a generation of Yasir Qazi's father, who has been my friend for over 60 years. If we can have youth like Yasir and others, that means we are living, growing, and strong. I don't think we should feel depressed at all. I don't think it's allowed in Islam to be depressed for one single minute. I see in Muslim Ummah enormous strength and power, but that power needs to be fully realized, and we develop a confidence in that. The problem is we don't have that confidence because we are very much impressed by apparent facade of a power, that power of shaitan, power of evil, which presents itself as if it's a global power. When we realize its foundations are based on that capitalism which is already broken, shattered, then I think we regain our confidence. And that regain of confidence should make us more and more strong, more and more close, more and more cemented, more and more in terms of futurist and not just talking about Muslim ills and evils. I'm not aware of any community where you don't have problems. Best communities of the world will have people who are not acting morally, but that does not make the whole community immoral. Muslims in general are people who are sensitive, who are behaving in most appropriate, rational manner. And therefore, this community which Allah has created in North America, I am confident is going to be the torch bearers of truth, the builders of peace and love in this part of the world, and at the same time, persons who are going to communicate this message globally, because here you have people from all parts of the world, from all languages, all kind of cultures coming together. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our efforts give those fruit which are promised in this world life hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make Muslim community more and more unified and strong and become leaders in thought, leaders in social action, leaders in creativity, and ultimately we succeed in sharing our truth with the whole of humanity. May Allah bless you all. Wa khatamtu rabbil alameen.